Hi there guys, welcome back to What a Replay. Not a replay today as such though. Today I'm on the 8.7 test server, so having a look at the new stuff. So this video is just going to be like a quick flick through the pages of all the new vehicles that have been included. We've got the British artillery, there's this premium tank destroyer, there's some change in the Russian tree, new map. A couple of changes to other maps, I think Port and I can't remember the other one now. Yeah, definitely Port has got the new graphics update to bring it in line with the latest rendering engine. I think Highway, yeah that's it, Highway is the other one. So whether or not those maps have actually been reworked as well, or if it's just graphical improvements they've made, is yet to see. I haven't actually been on those maps yet. I've been on the new map, can't remember the name of it, Belogorsk I think, Belogorsk 75, something like that. It's quite a nice map, it's a winter map, very small. I say very small, it is very very small. What I'm going to do now is just give you a quick run through of the different vehicles that are there, and then this afternoon I shall go out and play as many of them as I can, try and get on the new maps and the new graphical maps, and then I'll get another video posted up with some replays. Right, so firstly we have the E25. Now this is a German tank destroyer, very very small. It's a tier 7. It's quite unusual for a tier 7 German one. Firstly, it's only got 4 crew, so if you use your premium vehicles to train, then it's, compared to the rest of the German TDs, it's got less crew. Let's just have a look. Like, let's see, Stug's got 4. The Jagdpanzer 4's got 4, but then when you get to the Jagdpanther you get 5. The Jagdpanther 2's got 5, and then the Jagdtiger's got 6. And the Jagdpanzer 100 also has 6. So for training crew it's good for the lower tiers. Ideally the Jagdtiger 8.8, that would be the best premium TD to get in the Germans if you wanted to train crew, because it has a maximum complement. It's got all 6 crew, so you could train for your Jagdtiger and your Jagdpanzer 100 as well. The E25, I did try a couple of games in it quickly last night. It's a very very fun tank to play, and we'll have a look at the stats and you'll get an idea why. It's got 830 hit points, which for a tier 7, I don't think I've got any other tier 7s. Let's have a look. Oh yes I have. There's the Russian SU-100. Let's have a look at that. Got any more tier 7s? And I've got the French one. Good one, Mac. Why don't you put them over the stats so you can't see them? Right, so as you can see, hit point wise it's on par. 820, 830, 830, so that's bang on. Weight, very light, half the weight of the French tier 7. I mean, you can see just by looking at it, it is a tiny, tiny, tiny little machine. Absolutely tiny. Compare it to the French tier 7, see the difference. Amazingly low. Engine power 700 horsepower, so it's got a fairly powerful engine, but because of that low weight, and it's got a speed limit of 65 kilometers an hour, and it has no problem at all of getting to that 65 kilometers an hour. It's very 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 fast. 44 traverse speed, turns very fast. It's like driving a light tank, it's like driving a scout tank. like the old T50-2 or the Chaffee kind of thing. It's similar to those. Armour, yeah, it's a low tier-ish, or mid-tier, 50mm at the front. It's quite low as far as the armour goes, but it does have a good sloping on it. You can see there the angle's fairly well sloped, and because it sits so low, trying to shoot as low a plate would be that'd be quite difficult. Of course, being a tier 7, I'm not sure if it's going to get premium matchmaking. There's the battles I got in with it last night were all tier 7 battles. I would imagine that this thing would only get tier 8 max, but even tier 8s, there's plenty of tier 8 tanks and TDs around that are going to have no trouble at all penetrating this. They won't even have to worry about gold. This thing's going to have to rely purely on its speed, agility and stealth. The camo with this thing, I would imagine, would be through the roof once you've got 100% camo on your crew. Excuse me, and a camo net as well. It's going to be practically invisible. It's like a stealth bomber of TDs. The gun's another thing. It's only a 75mm. It's a 75 42 L70, which I believe you get on the Stug. Let's have a look. Yep. So it's the same gun that you get on the Stug and on the Jagdpanzer 4. So it's a below tier, a tier 6 gun. But one thing where this differs is the rate of fire. It's 20 rounds a minute. I mean, that rate of fire is just insane. The accuracy at 0.3, that's incredible. 1.5 second aiming time. I mean, I don't think there is another tank in the game which will aim in 1.5 seconds. It's just bonkers. And when the games I had last night, you're whizzing around at like 50 kilometers an hour, and you get 2 or 3 of these sitting together. The amount of shots they can put out is just, it's like a machine gun. It's like tanks were just evaporating in front of us. It was incredible. Really good fun. But I'll get some replays up of this later, and I'll show you those. Right, so that's that one. Been some changes in the Russian tech tree, or a change as far as I could see. The light tanks, so it used to have a branch where it would go up to the T50, and then you had the T50-2, which was the end of line for the scout tanks. Now it goes through, you got KV1, you go to the KV1S, and then you get the MT25, which is the new tier 5, or sorry, tier 6 light tank. And it's a little bit strange. Well, this is no longer an end of tier, it goes to the KV13. So, and the KV13 leads to the ISN T43, so it's quite a good reworking of that tree. But it's a strange, odd looking little machine. Let's find it. Now basically what happens if you had the T50-2 in your garage, then as soon as you've patched, your T50-2 will be gone, and you'll have this little thing, which is a weird little tank. It's like it almost looks like a cross between a Tetrarch, a 50-2 and a T34, like they've just blended them all in together. It's still got 72 kilometers an hour speed limit, 48 traverse, so it's still insanely mobile. Although now it's 25 tons, it's quite a bit lighter, a little bit heavier I think. And even though it's got a 23.1 specific power, horsepower per ton weight ratio, it, when I tried it last night, it definitely doesn't accelerate as quick, but it does turn easier. You don't slide as much when you turn. Like, I mean, the T50-2, every time you turn, you'd end up doing a power slide and going off course. This thing seems to be quite a bit easier to control. Gun, 57mm is 4, so it's got the same gun. 22.2 rate of fire. I believe that's a fraction quicker than on the T50-2. So it's pretty much the same gun. 570 hit points, yeah, so it's just like any of the other tier 6s on par with that. It's actually got less than the Chaffee, but then the Chaffee's still an end of tier 5 scout tank. A little bit smaller than the Chaffee, but it's definitely bigger than what it used to be. So that's that. I'll get some games up with that later as well. Right. There's no, if I look at the tree, one thing I was expecting was the 112, the tier 8 premium Chinese heavy, which is kind of like their version of the IS-6, I suppose. But unfortunately that still requires further testing and balancing, so it won't be making it into 8.7 as far as we know. We just have to wait confirmation on that. Right, let's have a look at the meat and bones. And there you have it, the meat and bones of this patch. We have 10 British artillery pieces. We have a look at the tree, starting at tier 2. So we've got the Lloyd gun carriage, the Sextant at tier 3. So Sextant 2 is the standard tier 3, and then the Sextant 1 is the premium tier 3, which costs 1250 gold. So it's half the price, 2 weeks worth of premium account, which seems quite a good value for a little premium. Then we've got the Birch Gun, the Bishop, the FV304, Crusader, FV207, FV3805, and the Conqueror gun carriage. Actually, take a look at them in the garage. I like, obviously being British, I mean I like the names the British things have, like the Sextant, and the Birch Gun, and the Bishop, Crusader. I know a lot of them, like the FV series, they're just either experimental prototypes, and that's just their classification, FV for fighting vehicle. But it would be nice just to have a name. That's just me. You get to tier 10, you've got the Conqueror gun carriage, which is a beast. But we'll start down the bottom with tier 2. Typical tier 2 little artillery, really. It's tiny, open top, 80 hit points, no health at all. 76mm gun, quick firing, 13 pounder Mark III. 42 penetration, 165 damage. That's pretty much on par with the rest of the tier 2s. It's actually on par with some of the tier 3s, like the SU-26. 76mm guns, similar to that stats wise. I'm not sure, but I think it may be based on the same chassis as the Bren gun carrier, which is a little kind of APC with a Bren gun machine gun on it. The suspension looks very similar. It's just hard to tell, obviously, because it's very open. You've got the transmission and the diff visible at the front, and then the engine. So it's basically just a flat chassis with a couple of sidewalls and a howitzer stuck on it. Basic engineering. Move up to the Sextant, which is a proper mobile artillery piece. It's actually used in the Second World War quite a lot by the British, and I believe the Canadians as well. It's based on the chassis of the M3 Lee, or in Britain it would have been the M3 Grant, which was basically the same tank, just slightly different turret on the top, more rounded turret. And that's tier 3, so you've got tier 4 gun, 140 hit points, 40 kilometers an hour. It's fairly manoeuvrable. It's pretty much just as manoeuvrable as the M3 Lee. And then you've got the gun, 44 penetration, 280 damage. Yeah, it's bog standard. Decent aiming time, 5.5. Reasonable accuracy, which is actually pretty good. And this was the premium one, so just bear that in mind. That's the premium one. That's 6 crew members. That's good for a low tier premium to have 6 crew members, because it means you can train all your crew for all your other ones. So when you look at the tier 10, the tier 9, they've got 5 and 6 crew members each. Although there is a problem with the British line, which I'll get to in a minute. Sextant 2, which is pretty much exactly the same vehicle. That's the standard tier 3, the non-premium one. Now it has the 25-pounder gun, whereas the premium one has the 25-pounder gun howitzer Mark II. So the difference being nothing. There is absolutely no difference between the Mark II and the normal one. So as to why they've done that, probably just call it a different thing because it's a premium tank, I suppose. But other than that, it performs exactly the same. So that should be pretty good. The Birch Gun at tier 4. I really like the look of this one. Not so much aesthetically, but I like the look of that. I haven't tried this one yet, but it looks like it's got possibly 360-degree traverse on the gun, which would be really good. Again, that's the quick firing 25-pounder. Now it seems to be a pretty common theme with the British artillery, is a lot of them use the same guns. So that's got a 25-pounder, that's got a 25-pounder, that's got a 25-pounder. The Bishop doesn't, so the Bishop goes up to a different one. But look at that, it's like, it's a Valentine chassis, it's quite clearly a Valentine chassis. It looks like a baby KV2. Hoping that turret's got quite a big traverse on it, because that would be really good. But that's just massive. It's listed as hull armour, so it doesn't list turret armour. So either there's no traverse on that massive box bit, and there's only a tiny bit of traverse in with a gun. We just have to wait and see when I try it. If it is just based on the gun, I mean, there's going to be practically no traverse there at all. If it is this bit and the turret, then I'm surprised it hasn't been listed separately as a turret. But being a Valentine, much slower, 24 speed limit, 22 traverse, which isn't too bad. That gun, 57 penetration, 450 damage. Does that compare with a tier 4? Yep, so it's quite a bit more damage, nice step up. Looks like quite an interesting, quirky looking little vehicle. Now this is, the next one is one that I did try. Now bearing in mind we're going up to tier 6. Look at the size of that. Tier 2, tier 6, tier 6, tier 10. It's tiny. It's one of the cutest artilleries I've ever seen. And look at that. 280 hit points, yep, 21 tons, 72 kilometers an hour, and a 24 traverse speed. So this thing, I did try it for a couple of battles. I'll get some replays up later. But it reminds me a lot of the American tier 6 tank destroyer, the Hellcat. Very, very fast. Doesn't accelerate amazingly quickly, but it will get up to its top speed. But it doesn't turn very well. So as soon as you turn, you bleed off half your speed. But this thing does need its speed, because it has the same 4.5-inch howitzer that you get on the previous tier 5, which does have, one thing I've noticed, a really low range. It's probably only got a range of about 500 meters or so. So these sort of things are going to be moving forward into advanced positions and getting shots off. Well, you're going to have to, actually, because you haven't got the range to shoot across the map. The arc on a gun seemed okay, didn't seem anything particularly special, but the traverse was quite good, and there's quite a bit of traverse. You can see the angle there. It's basically where that cut-off shape is across there. That's where the traverse goes. I was trying to think, it's got 5 crew. Like, where the hell do 5 people fit into that? It's just so tiny. Right, let's go have a look at a tier 7. This is a Crusader. Now, this is where a common theme comes in with the British. You can see it's definitely a Crusader chassis, but it's backwards because there's the engine. So they basically just put the gun where the turret well would be and where the driver would sit. It's quite interesting. I like the detail. There's quite a bit of detail on there, like with the pulley and things for the loading and the wheels and that. It's very good, nice detail. Although the Crusader was a fast cruiser tank, this thing, it's got 14 mph speed limit. Now, I'm guessing that's because it's going forwards. So I'm going to have to find out when I try it. I haven't tried this one yet. Is if it does 14 miles an hour because it's going backwards all the time, maybe it can go backwards at 40 or 50 kilometers an hour. You just have to wait and see. But that'll be an interesting, weird thing. It'll be bloody good for avoiding counter artillery fire, like counter battery fire. So you can sit there and then just drive backwards at full speed. That'll be amazing. Still 5 crew. This moves up again, extra inch of gun. You actually see it's a much bigger gun. 70 penetration, yeah, 900 damage, 72 accuracy, 6.5 aiming time. So you're getting into Hummel territory. It's sort of on par with the Hummel, and possibly the SU8. But yeah, quite a nice looking arty. And now, get into the big boys. Tier 8, FV4207. You can easily see it's based on the chassis of a Carnarvon, or the Carnarvon chassis. Again, that common British theme, there's the engine, so it's facing backwards. Although this one, they must have played around with the transmission, because it's 29 kilometers an hour speed limit. Large artillery, so you've got your bulldozer bit at the back there. But it's got decent traverse, 6 crew again, and a 6-inch gun, 1250 damage, 90 penetration, decent aim time, decent accuracy, rate of fire is okay. So yeah, 1250 damage, so that's that's tier 8. That's what, roughly on par with a GW Panther also. And tier 9 is a very similar vehicle, except this one's on a Centurion chassis. You can quite clearly see that's a Centurion. Much bigger gun. Again, it's going backwards. Looks like it's got a decent traverse. 1750 damage. So that, compared to other tier 9s, what else have we got? A tier 9. GW Tiger, so it's got less damage than a Tiger, but it's more accurate. And it's quicker to aim, quicker to fire. What else? Yeah, it's roughly equivalent to the M53, M55, and the Object 212. Yeah, so that's fairly on par. Tier 10, Conqueror. So this is a Conqueror chassis. And this one actually faces forwards. You can see the drive wheels there. And it's got a mortar. It's shorter gun barrel, very high arc, decent traverse. 34 kilometers an hour speed limit, 24 traverse. So it's reasonably manoeuvrable. I did do a couple of battles in this and it was manoeuvrable. The only problem was the battles I got was Himmelsdorf, which is just typical Sod's Law, getting bloody Himmelsdorf when you're trying to test an arty. Although I did manage to kill a couple of things, or one thing, which is quite nice. Now this thing, its gun is, you're getting into T92 territory. This is another really bad boy of a gun. 1.03. It's a very, very slow rate of fire. Without brothers in arms on the crew, but with a rammer and vents, which is another thing I'll get to in a minute. It was pretty much 50 seconds exactly to reload, so it's an insanely long reload. It's about 3 or 4 seconds longer than a T92. Accuracy 1.1, so not very accurate, long aiming time, but in practice it did actually feel like it aimed quicker and was more accurate than a T92 when I was using it. Insane damage, I mean 2,200 damage, it's massive damage. Premium rounds are HE only, so you've got 7.7 meter explosion range on standard ammo, 11.1 on the premium. It's quite a nice artillery piece actually. Quite looking forward to that. Some of the others, I'm not looking forward to the grind. I don't know if I've mentioned on other videos that I don't use free XP. I'll just start at the bottom and work my way up, do it the traditional old-fashioned way. And there's a lot in here that I'm not particularly looking forward to because of the very similar guns and things like that, all very slow, that sort of thing. But some interesting points to notice: the tier 10, the tier 9, the tier 8, the tier 6, and I believe, yep, the tier 5, they're all completely closed in. So because they're closed in, they've got no open space, forgetting how to speak, no open areas on them. You can put improved ventilation, which is brilliant. One of my friends last night was asking me, he goes, oh well, is it worth having ventilation rather than a camo net? And I'd be like, yes. I mean, camo net, yeah, it's got a bit of benefit, but the ventilation is probably the single most important upgrade on any tank, because it gives you 5% skill bonus to every single skill on the crew. So it's 5% quicker to load, 5% quicker to aim, and so on and so on. So it's a very, very worthwhile investment. And you probably notice here some of the ammunition. Right, only one ammo. It's got HE, 2 types of armour piercing. Armour piercing are pretty useless. They've got not a lot of penetration. Even the gold ones have only got like an extra 15 penetration. Same with that, 'cause it's got the same gun. Same with that. But a lot of them don't even have any premium ammo. There's not many ammo choices till we get to the bigger ones, which is quite strange. So